All right, it's that time again as we talk NFL football week 17. College football bowl action still going on. The playoffs are just a couple of days away, finally. Welcome in Marc Lawrence, Playbook Experts. That's the YouTube channel you want to check out. Also, playbooksports.com. Mark, how's it going?
It's going just terrific, Greg. I'm going to wish you a very happy new year, all the listeners out there and viewers out there as well. Nothing but the best of luck and success for the upcoming 2023 year.
Absolutely. And we are recording this on a Thursday, so just a couple more days. It's almost like I can't believe it's finally here because you forget about it after a few weeks if you're really interested in this game, like obviously I am with Michigan. And so you kind of just put it in your rear view, even though you talk about it every week. But then you look up and it's like, oh, wow, it's here. Just a couple more days. We can get this thing going. And then just a week later, you have a championship game. So I'm looking forward to it. It could be a really entertaining Saturday.
I'm with you 100% on that. In fact, you bring up a great point. I was doing a couple of radio shows earlier this week, and they switched the talk to the college bowl games and the playoff games, and it was like, whoa, they're coming up here this weekend. Just like you said, they snuck up on us in a sense, but it'll be really nice to see these games play on Saturday, which will obviously set the table for the NFL games on Sunday.
Yeah, just taking a look now, there's the game coming up tomorrow that is actually my top upset play. And I think that, look, I understand that their top two wide receivers aren't playing. I understand Hendon Hooker isn't playing, but I can get close to 2-1 on the money line with Tennessee against a Clemson team that's playing a freshman quarterback that hasn't really looked that much. He hasn't looked impressive yet so far. Clemson's offense doesn't really do much for me. The defense is solid. There ain't no question about it. I think this is a flip of the coin game, and therefore I think taking almost 2-1 on the money line, I think that's the way to go.
I think you're going to have an inspired Tennessee football team in that game here as well. They know that they could have well been in the college football playoff. It's not like they deserve to be there because given their results, but they know they have the talent and the ability to have been there and done just that. And I think they're going to be all excited to take out Clemson in this game. I'm with you 100%. I like Tennessee in that side in the game, the Orange Bowl against the Clemson Tigers.
And then after that on Friday, matter of fact, that game is a night game. So then you get the night game on Friday night, and then the early game on Saturday is the Sugar Bowl. And that Clemson Tennessee game is the Orange Bowl. So then you get the Sugar Bowl on Saturday at 12. And that's a really good game. The odds have moved up from 3.5 up to almost pretty much at a touchdown now. And why do you think that is? Was that just to make sure that, yes, quarterback's playing, Young's playing, Anderson's playing, the main guys are playing, and so the odds go back up to where maybe it should have been in the beginning?
I think it is, and I think it's also some late support for Alabama in the football game. People don't ever shy away from betting on Alabama, and especially in a bowl game where they're laying less than
yeah,
double digits in the
that's
contest.
rare.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's, hence I think that's the reason for the game here. And as far as the quarterback situation is concerned, is on the Kansas State side of things, they have two good quarterbacks there. So, whoever plays, if whoever starts the game and doesn't do well, the other quarterback's going to come out and be ready as the relief pitcher as well. So they got a nice situation going there with Kansas State, who I think is going to be pretty ecstatic about being in that game.
Yeah, I think because of that, one team coming off winning a conference championship game and the confidence is there. And, that it's, hey, we get to play mighty Alabama. It's just a big opportunity. And even though players will be leaving, like Deuce Vaughn, you're still going to have a coach that is trying to build something there. Now, I don't know whether or not some bigger program is going to come calling, but and we've talked about Kleiman the last couple of years, especially when he got the gig, about how much promise this was going to be for the program, what a great hire it was. And this is now showing you that, yes, it's great that they won a championship. It's great that they're in this spot, a big bowl game outside of the playoff. But for Kleiman, this is the beginning of looking for even more. So that's why they want to build up upon this game and not just be there, but win it.
Well, I think what else works in their favor here, Greg, is the fact that this is the third college football conference championship that dresses up as an underdog in a bowl game to a non-champion.
Okay.
The other two have both won straight up and against the spread. Both dogs win the bowl game straight up. It's because they're feeling ecstatic and the other guy's bummed out, if you will. And I think this checks that box all the way in this particular contest. We also talked a little bit in our podcast, in our Against the Spread podcast, about the fact that how well going into Thursday, as we do this show, that dogs in these bowl games so far that are coming off a season-ending win are 10-2 against the spread. That's a pretty nice number. It also comes to support Kansas State in the football game. So I'm with you. I think the Wildcats send Alabama home packing with their tails dragging between their legs.
Well,
there you go.
That'd be something. All right, the playoff games: Michigan, TCU, Ohio State, Georgia. I'm feeling good for Michigan. I feel like this is everything that they've been building up towards, is improving upon losing in the playoffs last year, and they won back-to-back Big Ten titles, and that was the only way they could pretty much get to this spot. I'm sure they felt they've accomplished that, but they haven't really accomplished what the major goal has been for them, and that is to at least get one playoff win. So I think there's still extra motivation. Meanwhile, TCU is coming off a loss. That's never good, but it doesn't mean they can't rebound and win. We saw Georgia do that last year in the playoffs. But you also maybe have to wonder a little bit when you finally lose. There's maybe a little confidence issue. Who knows? But they've played some really big games. They've got an exciting quarterback. We both love Max Duggan and Duggan, and really believe that he probably should have even won the Heisman. It's not going to be easy to put down. I just think Michigan's running game and their power game might just be too much for TCU's defense.
I think it will too, and I think that'll be the big factor in the football game will be the defense. Michigan's defense was smothering most of the football season here, and TCU's is amongst the worst of all the major bowl game, the players that are in the major bowl games. And you hit on an excellent point. In the college football playoff, since its inception, teams that enter into the playoffs off a loss, as TCU did, have never won a college football playoff game. So that's a big hurdle, I think, for TCU to have to handle here. And one thing that I remember seeing an interview of J.J. McCarthy after a football game, and they asked him about making the college football playoff this year, and can they improve on what they did last year? And he said, absolutely. And they asked him why. He said, simply put, we're a much better team this year than we were last year. And they also want to make amends for what happened last year. So I'm going to see a fully focused effort by Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines in this contest.
And then, look, the Georgia-Ohio State game, we know Ohio State has the talent. I just don't know if they've got the confidence. That is going to be the real stickler for Ohio State because, and I spoke with Kevin Noon. That interview is up on the channel, who covers Ohio State football, has been doing a great job of that for years, and talked about how there were a number of Ohio State players for that week after the loss and before they knew that they'd even be in the playoffs that might have already psychologically checked out, that they might have already been thinking about where am I going to transfer to? Am I going to go to the NFL draft? That kind of stuff. And then just like that, they got to refocus. And now it's about now. It's not just about my future anymore. And then what happened in the game itself that really damaged them psychologically. They felt that they had corrected the mistakes of the previous year. And that didn't happen. And now instead of waiting an offseason to fix things, they got to fix it in a week against a more superior team. So these are the things I'm a little bit concerned with. But we've talked about Ohio State and the program's ability to come up big as a dog in these big spots. And that's the reason why I'm not going to go for the upset, but I think the 7 might be a decent play. I got to see Ohio State get up to a good start, though.
I believe you'll see Ohio State get off to a pretty good start here. I think they're fully confident. They're playing with house money right now, given the fact that they, after the Michigan game, probably had no thought at all of being in the college football playoff. And if they weren't in the college football playoff, I might expect them to be a little bit flat. And perhaps some of the players looking to transfer, talking about that NIL money that's out there. But that's not the case. This is the college football playoff. They're going to come to win a playoff and take home and wear a national championship ring. I think everything works for Ohio State in this football game, and the pressure goes squarely to the Georgia Bulldogs to try and defend their national championship, which no team has ever done since the inception of the college football playoff. You talked about Ohio State dressing up as that underdog. 96 of the last 104 games that Ohio State's been in, they've been the favorite. Very rare underdog role for the Buckeyes, who, by the way, as we mentioned on our ATS podcast show, as dogs of more than 3 points, the last 15 times they've been in that role, they are 14-1 against the spread, Ohio State. Pressure all on Georgia in this football game with a touchdown delay on top of it. Give me Ohio State plus the points.
And we'll see what happens next week. Not a lot of people are giving TCU a chance, and they are, I still believe, somewhere around 14-1 to win the national championship, which is really something else. I mean, why not? If you have a nice account, why not just throw $10 on TCU? I mean, why not? I mean, they're a playoff team. I know the chances of them beating two very good teams, though, at this level, probably asking for a little bit too much. But but they are being disrespected maybe just a little bit.
Well, if they beat these two football teams, Quentin Tarantino will have a script for a new movie, okay?
Yeah. And then they'll be regretting not giving the Heisman to Duggan. That's
yes,
for sure.
They will. Exactly right. Exactly.
All right. So that's next week. We'll see what happens. Michigan, TCU, and then Ohio State, Georgia. All right. Let's. By the way, last week we talked about a bunch of the college football playoff bowl games. So that's still available if you want to check that out. And because as far as the rest of the weekend goes, we still don't know how Mississippi State's going to respond. That's a tough situation because I liked Illinois before the whole thing, before Leach passing away. Now I'm just staying away from the game. I know we disagree. I like Utah. You like Penn State in the Rose. Purdue, they might be a complete mess with the Jeff Brom deal. So who knows what's going to go on there. But the most intriguing one on the 2nd of January is Tulane, the Group of 5 champ against USC. And we talked a lot about that on last week's show as well. That Tulane, even though you're looking at a spread that might surprise people, there's a reason for that, and that reason is actually why we're both taking Tulane.
Well, Tulane also happens to check that same box we talked about just a little bit ago. They too are another conference championship underdog to a non-champion. Nice role to have to dress up in this particular game and be in. You've also got the Heisman Trophy jinx working against Southern Cal, and you've got a lousy defense working against Southern Cal in the football game. I think he added all up. I think Tulane has to be the right side in that football game.
All right, now let's go ahead and start with our NFL coverage. Week 17, the Thursday night game coming up later tonight, Dallas and Tennessee. The line just keeps getting bigger. And I understand it completely. You have a Dallas team that still has something to play for, and you have a Tennessee team that's playing for absolutely nothing. This is like a preseason game. This doesn't mean anything. That's why Derrick Henry's not playing. Josh Dobbs is getting the start. I guess it can't be any worse than Malik Willis. Why not take that? Look, Dallas has scored 24 points or more in their last 9 games, including 34, 40 twice, 49, and 54. So I'm not worried about 12 points.
Well, I would be concerned about 12 points. The fact of the matter is they have to win by two full touchdowns on the road to do just that. But the other side of the coin is they're an absolute mess at Tennessee right now. Not only are these starters out not playing, even if they were there, he wouldn't be playing them anyway. Mike Vrabel wouldn't because he knows his biggest game of the season is next week against Jacksonville. The winner of that game wins the NFC South or the AFC South. So that's a much, much bigger game for them to have to look ahead to. They can also allow himself 3 extra days of rest going into that game against Jacksonville next week, which affords him the opportunity to rest these players this particular game here. You'll never find me laying double digits on the road in the National Football League. I wouldn't care if Santa Claus was the starting quarterback for the other team. The truth of the matter is double-digit home dogs find ways to win money in the NFL. I'm just going to stay out of this particular one because everything points the opposite way of Tennessee in this game here. So I'll watch the game, cheer for you. Are you going to play a money line play in this game?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
Tennessee, no.
No, I didn't think so.
And then Jacksonville, here they are again in that favorite spot. They're 4.5, 4-point favorite. They're now 0-6, straight up ATS. Last 6 is a favorite. 0-3 in that spot this year since 2020. Houston already beat Jacksonville in that same spot. We were all over it earlier this year. Week 5, they upset Jacksonville 13-6. They've won 9 straight against Jacksonville. And then you got the favorite thing going against Jacksonville. If this was a completely meaningless game, I would be all over Houston big. I'm taking them small because of the fact that Jacksonville still has a mathematical chance at a wild card. Unlike Tennessee, no chance. Tennessee, not happening. It's win or lose next week for the South. But Jacksonville still has some things that could go their way. Not likely, but not like too crazy where they would look at that and go, yeah, maybe that could happen. So sure, we're going to play. And that's why you haven't heard them saying Trevor Lawrence ain't playing, so forth. They're playing the game. But I just, even with that, I just think there's so much going against Jacksonville data-wise that I still have to take Houston and the points.
Let me lay this scenario out for you. What would you do if I told you that there's a situation in the NFL this week where you can play against a favorite that has won straight up as an underdog 3 games in a row? Now they're changing roles. The last 15 times that this situation has occurred, they've only cashed the ticket 3 times.
Okay, even better.
Yes, and the team they're playing, like you said, has beat this team 9 times in a row.
Yeah,
okay? So
that's crazy.
Give me Houston, or I'll pass the game, but I cannot play Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and they're 175 on the money line too, which is not totally bad. So
right.
By the way, Houston leads the Chicago Bears by a half game for the top pick in the NFL draft. Now, the thing is this. We already know Chicago has their quarterback. Houston doesn't. So I haven't even thought about it yet, but I have to believe that Houston fans are just, we're this close from Bryce Young. This close from Bryce Young. All we have to do is not blow this. Now, again, Chicago doesn't need a quarterback. So what if Chicago's 1 and Houston's 2? Well, you know what Chicago's doing. Hey, who wants Bryce Young? Come on down.
Come on and get him. We'll flip with you, Houston.
Yeah, and Houston would have to give up, some capital in order to get Bryce Young. And why not just lose these 2 games and not have to worry about it? But that's not how they play football, so just keep that in mind.
Well, let me throw this at you also. Imagine this scenario. The draft has occurred. Bryce Young went number 1, and somebody traded with Chicago and took C.J. Stroud number 2, and suddenly C.J. Stroud turns out to be the better quarterback than Bryce Young. He's got much more physical stature than does Bryce Young.
Sure, it happens. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. He's more athletic than Bryce Young. The kid could have been a professional basketball player and a baseball player. He's just that athletically given. So if they do lose out on Bryce Young and end up having to settle for C.J. Stroud, I don't think they should lose sleep over something like that. That's my own personal opinion.
I agree. Yeah, especially because the collateral probably they'd have to. Who knows what they have to give up? Because other teams are going to give up a lot in order to move from like 5 or 6 or whatever to go get a quarterback. So yeah, Houston probably just sit right there and take C.J. Stroud.
Right.
And by the way, the Bears, they've lost 8 straight to put them in the position, and they're taking on Detroit, who, as we know, really needs the win. Detroit needs to win their last 2 games, and then they need at least a Seattle loss, a Washington loss, or 2 Giant losses. That's not – so let's just take the Giants out and say, really, as long as they win 2, they just get a Seattle-Washington loss to win. The biggest obstacle for them is going to be next week in Green Bay. That's going to be the biggest obstacle. I think there's more of a chance that Green Bay beats Detroit. That's more to worry about, I think, because Washington losing once in the next 2 weeks, that's possible, especially with Carson Wentz at quarterback. So
yeah, one of those 2 losses could happen this Sunday.
Yeah, could happen.
With Carson Wentz, exactly.
So there you go. But Detroit's got to take care of business or a 6-point here. I think they will. But we'll see, because this is just one of several teams we're going to be talking about, not used to being in this spot. There's going to be a lot of pressure on them. How do they handle the pressure? As long as Detroit can get off to a pretty good start, I think they'll be fine, and I expect them to cover that spread.
The only warning sign I'm going to throw at you before we move on to the next game, it's called 5-by-5, and it works against Detroit. Simply put, Detroit allows more than 5 yards a carry. Chicago gains more than 5 yards a carry. When you find dogs in this role, they're gold in the National Football League, and if they're a division dog, it's 24-karat gold. So that's the role Chicago assumes this particular week against Detroit, which tells me, or my final assumption on the game is the pressure is going to squarely be on Detroit in this football game.
And look, Detroit could care less if they cover. All they want to do is win.
Yes, true.
So that's all they care about. All right, and speaking of Washington, so they're a 2-point favorite against Cleveland. And look, I don't know what's going to go on with Carson Wentz. I think he does get ripped to shreds more than he should. He's not that bad. Is he worthy of his pick and the money he's been paid? No, we know that. But they just make this guy out to be like, Jamarcus Russell or Ryan Leaf. And it's just not, he's not that bad. He's just not as good as everybody had hoped. But we'll see. Maybe, look, we talked about backup quarterbacks, even though he's been a starter. Maybe this does give them a little bit of an adrenaline rush. But I think the opponent's the big thing, because I'm just going to find it a little bit. This happens every time we talk about it in college and definitely the NFL. That first game after you've been eliminated, I just think that the season Cleveland's had, you've just been eliminated. I think it might take a week for them to just kind of care, kind of give it their all. That doesn't mean Washington wins the game easily. It just means that Washington don't give Cleveland anything to play for. Don't let Cleveland in the game in the first half. Don't make stupid mistakes and penalties and take the pressure. And all of a sudden, Cleveland's in the second half in a close game going, yeah, all right, let's try to win this game.
Well, if you're Washington, you also want to blank out the fact that you played San Francisco last week. And the simple fact of the reason is teams this year who play San Francisco are 0-13.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah.
That's that maybe San Francisco is the most physical team in the NFL.
That's exactly what that's all about. They just beat the snot out of you, is what they do. So Washington's got to overcome that hurdle in this football game. So I think I'd lean to Cleveland in the football game, if for no other reason. One, the pressure on Washington, and two, that anti-San Francisco stat.
And I know there are a lot of people that are already, and look, we're in that age right now of social media and YouTube where it's everybody, it gets so too crazy with you got to win now. You have to produce now on a week-to-week basis, let alone every season. And already you're getting so many people talk, the Browns they've made a disastrous move with Deshaun Watson. It's going to kill them. It's going to set the franchise back. Look at the proof. Look, first of all, if anybody wants to criticize Deshaun Watson for last week when they're playing in 0 degrees temperature, stop. I don't want to hear it. Okay, just stop. But look, he hasn't even had an opportunity to have a full training camp with this team as the number one guy that I'm playing week 1 and all that kind of stuff. And he had all the distractions. I still believe he's the right guy just because he's had the off the field issues. As long as it doesn't creep back in, I think Cleveland will be they'll be benefiting from this move. Now it's up to the coaching staff, the GM. They have to make sure that they've got the right players surrounding a talent like Deshaun Watson. So yeah, it just bugs me. It's when people just go way overboard with analysis like Deshaun Watson is just going to just destroy Cleveland's franchise now for the next 5 years.
No, he won't do that. In fact, they paid him more money than anybody in the National Football League to be the man, and he's capable of being the man. He's got tremendous physical skills. We're seeing a lot of rust here, obviously, since he's come out here. But hey, this is spring training for him. It's spring camp for him. All this does is sets the table for next year. He gets to learn Kevin Stefanski's system. He gets to know his teammates a lot better here. So I think Cleveland's going to end up being better off for it next year by having him played the last fourth of this football season this year.
By the way, Washington, obviously they clinch if they win their next 2, and they have Philly on deck. They could also clinch with one win as long as Seattle, Detroit, or Green Bay doesn't win their last two games. So there's still a lot of opportunity for Washington, even if they just win one out of two. But sweep, and you have nothing to worry about, and you do control your own destiny. Speaking of Philadelphia, and this is important to go over this game because this is my top pick. Now, we talked about this off the air because it was my top pick. It was 5 points, 5.5. The line just moved up about a point and a half after word is that Jalen Hurts went to practice. And so I posed the question to you because I was going to go ahead and just wager on this today, tomorrow. I don't usually wait till Sunday if I don't need to. But now that the line moved up a little bit, is it in my best interest to now wait for the line to come back because Jalen Hurts is probably not going to start?
Well, I would say yes, it is. First of all, it's in your best interest to wait for the line to come back, regardless of that situation, because you're chasing what would end up being a bad number. Okay, you could have played it earlier, you didn't. Now you're going to go lay a worse number here, and if he doesn't play the football game, you're going to end up holding a ticket with a real bad number in the game. So there's no sense in throwing good money after bad money and not knowing whether the decision you made was right or wrong. Just let the game go and wait and see what happens on Sunday in the football contest here. I have a really good feeling and a good suspicion he's not going to play in this football game. I don't think they want to even think about risking injury to him. He was injured last week. They didn't play without him. I don't think they need to go into the playoffs with any thought at all of him being injured moving forward. So I would let that go. I would just wait and see what happens. But my best guess is he will not be playing on Sunday.
Look, for me, the reason why I really like this game is because of the fact that, contrary to what some people might believe, the Eagles have not sewn up home field advantage yet. So they win on Sunday, they get home field advantage. It's as simple as that. And you have another game left. Why screw around with that? Get it over with. And I don't care if Gardner Minshew's a quarterback. I'm fine with that. I still believe Gardner Minshew, with Philadelphia's talent, is better than Andy Dalton and New Orleans' talent. Sorry, just do. And I only have to give up 5-6 points in this situation. Come on, New Orleans has not won 3 straight since 2020. They need 2 wins and 2 Tampa Bay losses to win the division, which is not going to happen because they're going to have to beat Philly. And no way do I see this happening. I just don't, not knowing that the Eagles have to still win to get home field advantage. So I really like Philadelphia. I think they're going to cruise to victory in this one.
Well, there's a lot of people in Philadelphia that also feel the same way that you do. I'm a little bit concerned, if just for no other reason that they're laying something close to a touchdown in a game like this in a real bad division sandwich. And also the manner in which they lost to Dallas last week. They had a football game that they had in their back pocket, and they let it get away in the end with 2 terrible possessions in their final 2 possessions of the game, which not only lost the game, but then the next one lost the spread as well. So, whether or not they're going to be caught in this non-division sandwich, laying points in a role like this remains to be seen. I'm going to lean the other way in the contest because of all that, but I'm not going to be playing the game.
All right, and the team that they'll be playing next week is who are they playing? They're playing
Philadelphia. I believe they're playing.
I have him here.
Is it Washington?
I thought they were playing Washington because that's why I thought that. Yeah, no, they're playing the Giants.
Giants. That's right.
That's why
okay.
I screwed up with the Washington thing before. Because Washington's ending up with Dallas next week.
There you go.
All right, so. Philadelphia taking on the Giants, and the Giants are a 6-point favorite at home against the Colts. And I said I liked the Chargers last week because I felt after the Minnesota loss and where Colts were, I thought that they were done. And sure enough, they were done. I mean, they did nothing last week. They've lost 5 straight and 8-9. The whole Jeff Saturday thing is over. You're not getting anything else out of that. And I do feel like the Giants, even though they lost a tough one, it's a tough one to lose. I get all that. I think that's a good loss because they still are in a very good spot to go to the playoffs. They're playing the Colts. You're at home. This is a perfect opponent. That's why the schedule works out so well. It hasn't worked out well for, say, the Jets. Jets had to play the Lions and the Jags when they were playing the best football of the season. Giants Washington gets Cleveland, Giants get the Colts. So you have to get these breaks. We talk about it every season, schedule breaks, injury breaks, that kind of stuff. And it's working out perfectly for the Giants right here to take advantage of it. So you win, you're in the playoffs. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Can it be like Washington where or Detroit? They're not haven't been in this spot. A lot of these players, they're supposed to win. They're at home. Are they going to feel the pressure? Is it going to, kill them in the end? I'm going to bet that that's not going to be the case.
Well, I think personally, Robert Ursay should be fined to the absolute max for the situation that's going on in Indianapolis.
Oh, and Matt Ryan?
Robert Ursay.
No, I was going to say because of the Matt Ryan situation, or
because of Ryan,
or Jeff Saturday,
everything going on there. He's just letting this football team tank to the absolute max, getting out of contracts, and putting out there a non-competitive football team. It's embarrassing.
You're right.
To the league. And knowing the situation being what it is, there's no way on God's green earth I'm going to back Indianapolis at any football game moving forward. I don't care what the spread in the football game is, because this football team will not be trying. And when you're reverting to Nick Foles for your last two football games,
he looked so good last week. Hey, it's Nick Foles the rest of the season.
Yeah, there we go. Okay,
Why didn't you play? Isn't that young kid still there, the quarterback that started the season?
Yeah, from Texas.
Why don't they give him a shot?
Who knows? But it's Robert Ursay. You can't figure out this goon's his thinking here. Nick Foles had as many turnovers as he did generate points last week.
Ugh.
3 turnovers, 3 points. Where are they going with Nick Foles?
Nowhere.
They're not going anywhere.
It's terrible.
I would say Giants are only or past the football game. I can't touch Indianapolis with a 10-foot pole right now.
I don't know if this is the spot for him, but we know that Tennessee's general manager is gone. The way that Tennessee's ending their season with no Ryan Tannehill, there's some talk that Mike Vrabel might move on. Maybe Tennessee is going to start all over. New general manager who will want his own head coach and so forth, and a new quarterback. And I could see all that happening. It doesn't mean Mike Vrabel can't coach, because he's a very good coach.
Yes, he is.
He might wind up being the number 2 guy after Peyton, if he's available in the market. So the question is going to be, if you start thinking about it, and look, he could even win and get to the playoffs and still not be there next year. But the question is there a good spot out there for Mike Vrabel? Because if he does leave, he'll be a head coach in the NFL somewhere next season.
Well, he would look real nice in Indianapolis. I think the only problem there is it's a division opponent. And you rarely find a coach that gets either fired or leaves and takes a job within the division.
Yeah, unless you're Bill Belichick.
Yeah, exactly right.
Actually, he went to Cleveland first.
So, yes, right. Yeah. So, but Vrabel would be a very attractive hire, I think, for any team that's in need of a good coach. He's an excellent coach. He's been very, very good to us in the database as far as the money is concerned. But what's going on with Tennessee this year has been all about injuries. And it's bottoming out that way with Ryan Tannehill sitting on the sidelines now. And like you mentioned, they're down to Joshua Jobs and Malik Willis. I don't know what's going to happen to this team if they make the playoffs here. They're going to kind of
they'll be one and done. Everybody wants to play them if they're in.
Yeah, they'll be a laughing stock is what they'll end up being.
Yeah, and so that'll be the worst playoff team for sure, no question. And look, that's we'll get into that a little bit later. As far as getting number 1 seed in the wild card round is also very important. Okay, now here's a game. Look, I do not like, as you know, we've talked about this a lot, taking Kansas City very much because they're not a very good spread team. They're 2-6 ATS last 8. But I will say this. I know it's 12, it's a lot of points, but after what happened at Denver last week, and maybe that's a wake-up call, the coach is gone, and who wants to be here, but I also just think there's too much turmoil. Russell Wilson's still there. He's not going anywhere. There's just utter turmoil going on in that locker room, and here you have a Chief team that needs to win to try and get home field advantage in the playoffs. 1 seed is important. They know that. So they're going to be playing their butts off, and Denver is in complete turmoil. So I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm giving the 12. They've won 14 straight against Denver. By the way, I took Denver as an upset play in this spot last month and almost got the win for Denver, but this is just a different scenario already. The Denver locker room, like we just said, is just got to be in turmoil. So I'll take Kansas City and give the 12.
Well, I'm not going to do that, but I'm also not going to play the football game because, as we wrote in the Playbook newsletter, I wouldn't get within 100 feet. of this dead horse in the Denver Broncos right now. The situation that's going on there is really appalling, with having to make Nathaniel Hackett the sacrificial lamb, all because of what Russell Wilson's turned out to be. I mean, the things he's done, and this situation started great when he was at Seattle. And he's a very selfish individual, and he puts himself above everybody else. And he has all these demands. He demands a suite in every road game that he goes to. He's got his own office in the locker room. Things that don't behold him very well to teammates. And can you blame an offensive line that doesn't want to block for the guy? No. And we're seeing a lot of that here right now. The other side of the coin is Kansas City's been a real money burner here.
Yeah.
All season long, and especially in the past, down the stretch as they are right now. Can I see Denver playing a better football game this week than did last week? Yes, I can. Yeah. They can't play worse. No. Exactly right. So put a gun to my head. Give me the 14 with Denver and move on to the next game.
Okay, we'll do that. And let's talk about the big game in the NFC South, Carolina and Tampa Bay. And Steve Wilks, wow, now Carolina, this is going to be like the Raiders last year. What are you going to do if Steve Wilks leads the Carolina Panthers to the postseason? Does he get the job? Or he's not the guy, and they're going to go find someone else. Especially considering that he's a minority coach. There'll be a lot of pressure to keep him as head coach. But first things first, they have to win, because if they don't get to the playoffs, nobody cares about what Steve Wilks did to get to the Panthers to, this spot on Sunday, that to possibly give them a shot next week to enter the playoffs and win the divisions. Look, I like Carolina in this spot, and there's a few reasons why. Tampa Bay, this is just mind-blowing. 1-12 against the spread in their last 13 games. That is just so bad. And it's not a mirage. It's not like a Chiefs spread. They're just not playing well. They couldn't barely beat Arizona with Trace McSorley, for crying out loud. So Todd Bowles, we all know by now, there's no way he's coming back as head coach. They're not turning this thing around. I just would be so surprised if Tampa Bay just beats Carolina on Sunday and they clinch the South and it's over. Next week, nobody cares. We're on to the play. I just can't see it being that easy. I just can't. I think Carolina's playing so well right now. They've won 4 out of 6. They've covered 5 out of 6. And how about one of these trends from the Playbook magazine? You have to make sure you get one of these for next year. 10-0 against the spread on the road, following a double-digit spread win. 3-0 in that same spot this season. And I'm taking Carolina to win the game outright.
Carolina 9-1 to the spread, coming off a straight-up home underdog win. I mean, all the trends are pointing to Carolina in the game, and the anti-trends going against Tampa Bay. They've been pathetic this year, especially to anybody that even thought about backing this football team. You got one team playing with a lot of mojo, and the other team not knowing where they're going to go. And that's Tampa Bay in the football contest. You mentioned about Steve Wilks, and if he gets this football team to the playoffs, how can you not hire this guy? That's what you hire coaches for, to take you to the playoffs.
Yep.
They were dead in the water. They were buried. The final nail was ready to go in the coffin, when he come aboard. And if he steers them to the playoffs here, the owner ought to be forced to sell the football franchise if he doesn't hire him. I'm with you. I like Carolina in this game. You got two teams, opposite directions. The better team is the underdog in this game, and I have to play them plus the points.
By the way, this is going to be a tough sell. Let's say Wilks doesn't lead the team to the playoffs, and they're openly going to hire someone else. They're going to go in there, and they're going to go, who's the quarterback? We don't have a quarterback.
Well, that's the draft, okay?
Yeah, that's the thing, though. And there's still a lot of rebuilding that needs to be done there, including the quarterback. So when you compare it to some of the other jobs, it's probably not going to be one of the better ones. But first things first, and let's see if Steve Wilks can hold on to that job.
Well, I can assure you, Sam Darnold will be the quarterback to start the season.
Next season, yeah.
Yeah, depending upon who they draft, and whoever they draft, it won't be as high in the draft as they wanted it to be because of the surge that they've had. Yeah. But it'll still be somebody that could be behind Darnold and learning the trade. So I don't think that's going to be their Achilles heel so much next year, because I think they'll either trade for a quarterback or find one in the draft. So I don't think they're concerned about that. I think their focus is more on trying to steal a playoff berth there.
Absolutely. And we'll see if they can do that. If they beat Tampa Bay, they will go to New Orleans next week with the opportunity to win that. And look, it would probably be better for them, which I think is going to happen. New Orleans loses to Philadelphia, and then they're out, and then they're not playing for anything.
Right.
So that could work out in Carolina's favor if it happens that way. But again, if Tampa Bay wins, it's all over. And then the last game at 1:00 to talk about is another huge game: the Dolphins and the Patriots. Patriots, all of a sudden, a 3-point favorite in this game. I'm very surprised about this. I mean, I know Teddy Bridgewater is not Tua, but I didn't realize he was that bad. Miami started almost. This is like a 6-point swing. It's too much for me, especially since the Dolphins have beaten the Patriots 4 straight times. They beat them week 1 this year, straight up in ATS, by the way. Patriots are just 1-4 in their last 5, even though the Dolphins have lost 4 straight, and that's why they're in this position. The thing that you would like if you're taking the Patriots, they're 6-1 straight up, and 5-1-1 against the spread as a favorite this year. So they've handled business, but most of the time when they've been favored over those teams, when you look at it, those aren't very good teams. This is a good team that has a quarterback that's out. And I think Teddy Bridgewater was a very good signing for this exact reason. Not that he could start like Brissett for half a season. You need to key start sometime during the season for 1 week, 2 weeks at most. I think Teddy Bridgewater can do that. I'm taking the Dolphins in this spot. I just don't like the way the Patriots have been playing, just like Miami. But I think I've liked the way Miami has looked better than the Patriots' losses. I just don't think Miami is just still a better team.
Well, I might say this, they may have been a better team until the last 4 football games when they've unraveled at the seams. And the move here is obviously because of Tua being out. And you say, well, is he worthy of the move? I think his answer to that is probably, hey, guys, I'm the number 1 ranked passer in the National Football League in total passer rating, Tua Tagovailoa,
Sure.
thus far this football season here. You can't refute that.
No.
And what happened to him last week, when he unraveled in that 4th quarter against Green Bay, now it's understandable with the concussion. He even went so far as to say he was calling plays in the huddle that he didn't even know he was calling. So he was obviously woozy and banged up and probably should not have been in the game at that particular point. What I like about New England here is this, though. I don't like the way they choked the game away last week. I mean, they were
after they had the comeback.
Oh, they were being blown out. They scored 3 touchdowns in the second half, hold Cincinnati scoreless, miss all 3 extra points, and then fumble the ball away at the 3-yard line in the final 30 seconds of the game when they had the win in hand. That's going to be real difficult for this football team to have to get
back to back after what happened with the Raider loss.
Exactly, on top of it. But you've got a role that Bill Belichick has excelled in his career, and that's last home games of the season. He's been a head coach in the National Football League 26 years. In those last home games, he's 20-6 straight up and against the spread in these final home games. I don't see him losing at home again. Very seldom does he lose back-to-back home games in succession here. I'm going to lean to New England in the football game. I don't like the line move. I would have been all over them like white on rice had they been the underdog in the contest. I would rather have Tua in the lineup and play New England plus the points. I don't get that. So I'll stay out of it, but my lean would be New England in the game.
So if Miami wins and the Jets lose, Miami gets the wild card.
Yep.
If New England wins, then they could clinch the wild card winning at Buffalo next week. Now, the reason why that gets tricky for New England, because we're going to get into this now with this number 1 seed, is because the Monday night game, Buffalo-Cincinnati, obviously a tough opponent for Buffalo. So Buffalo right now, the number 1 seed in the AFC. So let's say, and they have the tiebreaker on Kansas City. So Buffalo is in a spot, obviously this week, just like they will be next week, that they have to win. Now, let's say Buffalo loses the game against Cincinnati, which is entirely possible. They will play the game against New England, and I believe it's schedule-wise they'll still do it. Buffalo would be at 1:00 against New England. Kansas City will be at Las Vegas, 4:00. So Buffalo would know we still need to win the game in case the Chiefs lose. Because if the Chiefs get upset late, we get the home field advantage. Why am I bringing this up? Because if Buffalo plays the Patriots next week, some people are going to go, well, Buffalo may not care. Yes, they're going to care. And I think it's very possible that they care either way, win or lose this week, as long as the Chiefs win. Okay? Because if the Chiefs win this week, next week's game for Buffalo still has meaning. And I can't see the Chiefs losing to Denver. So I bring this point up because don't think the Bills are going to be resting guys next week against the Patriots, meaning
No,
Patriots still have to beat a good Buffalo team to get to the postseason. That's not going to be easy.
no, it's not. It's a tough row to hoe here for Bill Belichick moving forward here. And that last loss last week is going to end up proving to be ultra costly for him. He knows it. I saw it in his face in the disgust after the game in the interview. He didn't want to put the blame on Stevenson for fumbling the football,
Sure.
which was, good on his part. No, you can't cry over spilt milk. It's not
Yeah,
going to
he's
change.
a good runner. I mean, he's a physical runner. He has all sorts of yards after contact, and you can't
It was
blame a
his,
guy unless
it
he
was
has
his,
500 fumbles.
it was his first fumble of the year.
There you go.
Yeah. So, who saw that coming? Nobody. Only the football gods.
All right, and then you have the Jets at Seattle. So it can be simpler if the Dolphins do beat the Patriots and the Jets beat Seattle. Jets at Miami next week. Winner takes the wild card. If the Jets win and New England wins, then again the Jets are going to need the Bills to lose, and then the Jets are still going to have to beat Miami anyway. So the bottom line is Jets have to win the next two. I don't think what they need to happen is all that far-fetched. So again, because if the Dolphins win, hey, we get the Dolphins next week, winner take all. If the Patriots win, hey, do you really think the Patriots are going to beat Buffalo next week? So I think the Jets are in a pretty good spot as long as they win their next two. And the best thing to happen to them psychologically was getting Mike White back. They just have no confidence right now. The players, and not just on Zach Wilson, but the entire team. The entire team has no confidence right now. They're a young team. They haven't been, even Mike White against the Vikings, they weren't able to come back, and they should have won that game and didn't. Zach led him to a touchdown late against Detroit. Defense couldn't stop Detroit. That's another. They just don't have the confidence to finish games right now, but they get the juice backup quarterback factor. And I think that is going to elevate them and give them a little bit of hope that, hey, you know what? Hey, here comes Mike White, and maybe he could save us. And I think that's going to be good enough. And I like the Jets against Seattle.
Until White throws his second pick in the first quarter of the football game.
Well, he hasn't looked that bad yet. So,
Well,
but if he does that, yeah, they'll be in big trouble. Especially when Gino wants to stick it to the Jets.
Absolutely, he does. I think if you go back and you look at the game film on the New York Jets, you'll find that Mike White, before he got hurt, it was unraveling. Okay, he was not playing good football. He was being looked like that backup quarterback. That there was a reason he was a backup quarterback.
Hey, New York writers don't see eye to eye with you on that one.
Well, I see
They
it
kiss his butt left and right, Mike White.
because he's not Zach Wilson. Okay?
Yep, exactly.
Right, but I'm just saying on merit, you look at his quarterback rating and his numbers; they're not there. They weren't there.
It's not that great. No.
Yeah. So, but anyhow, I'm looking at this game like this. I'm looking at Seattle, a football team that needs this game like blood. Okay, they've lost 3 straight home games in a row. The 3 previous home games in a row, and our Bet You Didn't Know handicapping article in the Playbook newsletter this week comes from a black book super system that I do, and I called it Paint It Black. And my favorite Rolling Stone song, by the way, and that's why I titled that song in this to this particular article. And what it involves is home dogs, non-division home dogs that have lost 3 in a row straight up and against the spread. When they're a non-division home dog to a losing team without a winning record, they've been in this role 19 times. They've lost the spread once. Okay, so a really, really strong role for Seattle in this particular football game. I think they exposed the Jets in this contest here. Personally, I like Seattle in the game.
Well, 2 teams that are completely lacking confidence, and whoever maybe gets off to a good start, maybe that's the team that pulls out, pulls it out, because both teams are 1-5 in their last 6, and Seattle's dropped 6 straight covers. Seattle's got the Rams next week, and all of a sudden, that was a game that was supposed to be a gimme just a couple of weeks ago. Now the Rams, Seattle is just not in good shape right now. Even if they win their next 2 games, which are not going to be easy to win, they're both at home though, they still need Washington to lose once and the Packers to lose once. It's not going to be easy for Seattle to get to the postseason.
No, it won't, but that won't matter in this game. All they need to do is win this game. You're talking
Sure.
about a season-ending scenario for Seattle here. I don't think they're going into this game defeatist because of that. They just know that they have to beat the Jets to have a playoff chance.
Green Bay and Minnesota, and Green Bay, speaking of the Packers, they were a 3.5-point favorite in this one, and they get the wild card with 2 wins, and then they have to have at least 1 Washington loss or the Giants lose their final 2. So it's not far-fetched to believe that the Packers can pull this out. A few things here with Minnesota. They, even though they can't get the top seed, as long as the Eagles win against the Saints, so that's there because they lost to the Eagles early this year. But they still need to stay ahead of San Francisco. So this is still a meaningful game. This would give them the number 1 seed in the wild card round. And that's important. And also, hey, you never know. Having a number 2 seed's better than number 3. So they're going to play. They're not resting anybody. Plus, keep in mind they're playing the Packers. And this is an opportunity for the Vikings to eliminate the Packers. So I don't want to hear anybody that thinks that they're not going to try to win this game. And how about this, too? Just imagine if Minnesota's probably looking and go, yeah, wait a second. I don't want to play the Packers in the postseason. So just because that could happen. They
Sure.
can actually wind up playing the Packers at home in the first week, and they won't want to play Aaron Rodgers. So they're going to try to do whatever they can to eliminate the Packers in this game. And I bring that up because I just think that, and I understand why a lot of people are on the Packers. Last week we talked about it on the show. I went ahead and threw some money on the Packers money line based on a conversation we had on the show. And I was like, you know what? It makes sense. And then it worked out, and Green Bay found a way. But now they're like expected to win. Now it's like everybody's taking the Packers. And it's like, wait a second, I get what you're doing here, but they're the favorite now. And the Vikings, everybody hates them. They're overrated. They're lucky. I'm taking the Vikings in this spot. I know I'm not popular in this pick, but I just get the feeling that too many people are just looking at this as it's just an academic. Packers are going to roll. And I just think maybe Minnesota might have some. And for a team that has as many wins as the Vikings have, for them to be getting plus 160 on a money line to a losing team, I'm willing to take that chance.
Well, you're going to take the Vikings and take that rabbit's foot along with you because
Absolutely.
they've had it all season long.
Yes.
I can totally get it. I totally understand it. One of the reasons that Green Bay's favored in this game is Aaron Rodgers has been like money in the bank during the final quarter of the football season. In regular season games from game 13 out, he's 15-1 straight up. So if you feel that he can win the football game and you look at Minnesota, they're 1-15 against the spread in their last 16 conference losses. So the two numbers kind of come to Green Bay support in this football game here. I'm still not in tune with Minnesota. Number one, they no longer have the worst defense in the league, though. I mean, we've been rapping on them all season long. They've just handed that over to the Detroit Lions, okay, who are now the worst defense in the league. Minnesota, second worst defense in the league. But they still have been very fortuitous, as you mentioned here before, 11-0 in one-score games this football season here. They haven't been involved in the most one-score games, but the 11 they've been in, they've won every one of them, which is really beneficial, obviously, to them. But I like Green Bay in this football game because Aaron Rodgers shines in football games when his team has a losing record and he's in a division contest. It's exactly what he's in this particular game, and he's at home.
Yeah, I get the feeling that if the Packers win this game, I think they win easy.
Yes, I do
like
too.
you said, I think if it's a close game, I think Minnesota, that they're happy to be there. That they're comfortable in that spot. And they don't have any pressure on them. Packers would have all the pressure on their side. And let's keep in mind that the two weapons that Aaron Rodgers needs to get the ball to are still rookie receivers. So they haven't been in this spot before. But
one of them is pretty good, I got to tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They've got one, finally. And it's too bad that he was injured because if he started the season healthy, Packers wouldn't be in this spot.
No, and he'd be hands down rookie of the year, right?
Yeah. So, boy, isn't it nice when you're a rookie receiver? It's sort of like what's going on. So, it's sort of like the Jets, even though Garrett Wilson still might wind up offensive rookie of the year. Uh, Imagine if he had Aaron Rodgers throwing to
Oh,
him.
oh.
I mean,
He'd be like Devontae Adams, maybe not the physical
yeah,
side, but the career anyway.
yeah, he'd have like 1,400 yards receiving, something like
Right.
that. Everybody
Exactly.
would be like, "What the heck's going on here with this guy?" Anyway, we'll see what happens. That's a good one, though. Looking forward to seeing that one. Minnesota at Green Bay. The weather also could come into play. Who knows? It's always cold, at least at this time of year at Lambeau. Also, at the late game, we have the Rams and the Chargers. Look, I'm taking the Rams in this spot because I said with Cleveland, they've just been eliminated. But also, what if you're just clinching and you really can't move up too far? I mean, players that are like the Chargers that know they can't win the division, they know they're going to be fifth, sixth, seventh. Let me tell you something. They don't care. They just don't. They don't. Oh, we got to win this game to be the fifth seed or not the sixth. The players do not care about that stuff. And I say that because the Rams are playing some pretty good football, all things considered. Baker Mayfield's found a home, which I think is good for him. I think it's great for the sport anytime you can resurrect a quarterback's career. And look, they're playing in the same stadium. They're a 7-point dog. They're over 2 on the money line. And the Chargers are 0-3-1 against the spread in their last 4 as a home favorite this year, including 2 straight losses. So it's possible you might see the Chargers kind of take a breather. We're in the wild card, and the Rams might be able to pull off a little bit of an upset here.
Yeah, and you got Baker Mayfield playing for his career. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, he's going to be coveted now, maybe even by the Rams, for all we know.
Oh, he's got to be back with he has to return to the Rams. He has to.
Yeah, even if he signed and knowing that Stafford's coming back, he's still capable
Yes.
of winning the job or at least being there when needed. So
Yes.
he's in a real good spot. Who's not in a good spot are the Chargers here. This game's at SoFi Stadium. Every Los Angeles fan in that stadium is going to be a Rams fan, okay? They don't support the Chargers.
That's true. Yeah.
Nobody comes up from San Diego anymore into Los Angeles. So I think between the crowd and the mojo that the Rams have got with Mayfield, I think this is a good spot to back them in this game.
San Francisco is up to a 10-point favorite now. No Derek Carr. I just can't get enough of the videos I'm seeing and the stories I'm seeing about, hey, which team is going to get Derek Carr next year? Which general manager is going to be lucky enough to get Derek Carr? It's like, who wants Derek Carr? I mean, just ask Raider fans if they're happy or not that Derek Carr's gone. They're the ones that have watched every snap of his career there. They must be so happy that he's gone. I mean, this is just the most ridiculous thing. Derek Carr? I mean, Derek Carr to me right now is, okay, he's maybe a little bit better than Joe Flacco right now. You bring him in as a backup, you sit him on the bench, and unless he wants to go start for, I don't know, some crappy team that has no quarterback, fine. But there is no Super Bowl contending team that's bringing Derek Carr in just to start for him.
No, he'll end up being the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans, the Atlanta Falcons, a team like that has a terrible quarterback situation right now. Maybe even the Carolina Panthers. You don't know.
Go.
Okay, you don't know. They're not going to certainly draft another quarterback. I don't think they are, Carolina. I think they'll trade for one before they'll draft one. So Carr will be playing in the National Football League somewhere, okay, just not in the coveted position of being on a Super Bowl contending type team. The move in this game is all about Derek Carr here, obviously. But the question I got to ask you is, how do you feel if you're Devontae Adams? You okayed that trade from Green Bay to move to Las Vegas to be with your partner, your buddy, Derek Carr, who was your college buddy quarterback, and all of a sudden he's gone. Where does that leave Devontae Adams as far as the Raiders are concerned in their future?
Yeah. Well, look, that's why to me, I think it's, you could say what he's going to say, and I think it's a factor, but this is the factor. This is always the factor. And the Raiders were paying him big bucks, and that was, I can play with Derek too? Great, let's do it. But okay, Derek's gone. I'm gonna miss him. But hey, who's coming in? And look, he's not gonna be happy, I'm sure, if they go draft a quarterback and he's gonna sit there for 2 years. while some young quarterback, being groomed by Josh McDaniels to be the next dude. I get that, but who knows? Maybe the Raiders will look for a starting quarterback, like a veteran quarterback, and that won't be the case. I think he'll be fine. He gets paid well. But we'll see how it happens. I mean, stranger things have occurred as far as contracts and such, but you know what? I think it's also kind of good, to tell you the truth, because when you watch the Raiders play a lot, it almost gets sickening how often Derek Carr was throwing the ball, forcing the ball to Adams. It's like anytime he just, he would just, I don't know how many plays I saw, he would just chuck the ball up, knowing that even though Adams was completely covered, I'm going to chuck it up. And that's why, Adams is going to miss that. Not his buddy. I love this guy. We're really close friends, but he's going to miss the favoritism of having Derek Carr throwing the ball even when he's covered. So, anyway.
Largely because he's been famous for winning balls like that when he's been targeted, but not so much this year.
No.
No.
And Jarrett Stidham will be the quarterback, so that's why taking San Francisco makes a lot of sense. They've won 8 straight, covered 7 of 8. And they still have a chance. We talked about Minnesota. If the Packers lose to the Vikings lose to the Packers, which a lot of people believe will happen, San Francisco could end up as the number 2 seed. So keep that in mind. That's why this is an important game for San Francisco. And I think you got to believe there's going to be some weird stuff going in that locker room this week for the Raiders.
Yeah, for sure there will be. You just don't know their mental psyche here. Maybe he was not well liked, and the players might play without him. You don't know. Those are the things that we don't know. All we know is this line is surged up to 10, which takes me completely out of the game.
And then Sunday Night Football, we talked about this a month ago, and it worked, and that's why I'm doing it again. The dog in this series has dominated. The dog has won 7 of the last 9 outright. 9-0-1 against the spread in the last 10. It was the upset by Baltimore that continued the streak without Lamar Jackson. Just again, that was December 11th. 16-14 is a 2-point road dog. Baltimore won the game outright. Baltimore is now the favorite. So now I'm jumping on the other side, and I'm taking Pittsburgh, who's won 4 of the last 5 straight up and against the spread.
I'm 100% in your corner on this call here. A couple of things here. They're playing with really good momentum now since T.J. Watt's been back in the lineup, 6-2 straight up into the number. They're playing for Mike Tomlin to preserve that losing season that he's never had before. And you got Baltimore, a football team that just cannot find a way to put points in the scoreboard here.
Oh, their receiving situation it's got to be one of the worst in the NFL.
It's pathetic. And word is no Lamar Jackson again this week. So why would you want to consider Baltimore, who backed into clinching a playoff berth last week against a hungry Pittsburgh Steelers football team here, who's coming to keep their playoff hope alive here? I think there's only one way to look in this game.
What kind of spread movement if Lamar Jackson starts?
We'll find the game go to 3.5 maybe. I don't think it'll be as big as it should have been or could have been because he hasn't played in a while.
Okay.
And I think also that the odds makers would know that he's more than likely not 100% healthy.
Yeah. And the receivers still stink.
On top of it, yes.
By the way, Pittsburgh is eliminated. If this is important.
Yes.
So if the Dolphins win and beat the Patriots earlier in the day, Pittsburgh will know on Sunday night that they've been eliminated. So just keep that in mind.
But they'll still be playing for the Mike Tomlin factor.
Yes, which right. I'm still taking them because when we look at this data, the data doesn't say when these games were won and what was the situation. So, I'm still taking that dog, and then you can throw in the Mike Tomlin thing as well. I have no problem with that. The bottom line is Pittsburgh needs to win 2 games, and they need to have Pittsburgh win on Sunday, but then lose next week. They need the Jets to lose on Sunday, but win next week. So a lot of hope for Pittsburgh. It's not totally out of possibility. They will host Cleveland next week, by the way, just in case that game matters. And then the final one, of course, is maybe the best one, even though it doesn't mean anything except for, we know both teams where they are. We know this could be a big deal when it comes to, hey, if we play in the playoffs, how do we match up, that kind of thing. Buffalo's a 1-point favorite. They've won 6 straight. And I keep saying this, and it just keeps working out. Cincinnati 7-0 straight up ATS last 7, 11-2 straight up, and 12-1 ATS last 13. So I'm still riding this bandwagon. And by the way, the Bengals are 8-1 to win the Super Bowl. I've already put money on that. And I'm going to keep putting money on that as long as it stays up there. I still believe that Cincinnati can win the Super Bowl this year the way they're playing. Keep in mind, if Baltimore does lose, though, to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati wins the division. And we'll know, obviously, with Sunday Night Football, this is a Monday night game. So, but not that it's going to matter for Cincinnati. And like I said, if Kansas City loses to Denver, Buffalo can clinch the top seed with a win. Chances are that's not going to happen. So there is still to play for. Buffalo trying to play for a top seed and Cincinnati trying to win the division.
I think the one number that jumps off the page for me is a Joe Burrow stat. And, I've got to say, Joe Burrow is right up there amongst the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. This kid, he looks to me like a confident Joe Montana.
Isn't he just like, if you're looking for the mantra, the prototypical winner label?
Exactly.
This is him. This is Joe Montana, Joe Burrow. That's why I blindly say, I'm putting money on the Bengals to win. I don't care about anything else. I know Joe Burrow is going to be there, and I know if any quarterback can go to a second straight Super Bowl in 2 years in this league, back-to-back, and win it in his third year, it could be Joe Burrow.
He throws the ball with such precision. Aaron Rodgers-like precision, in Aaron Rodgers' prime, obviously. But the thing that jumps out to me is the one stat in his career in the National Football League since he's been here. When he's played an opponent that comes in off a win and cover their previous game, he's 14-0 straight up and 13-1 against the spread.
Wow.
That's a pretty strong stat.
14-0.
Yes, coming into the Buffalo game here. All right, so give me Joe Burrow against Buffalo on Monday night, and we'll see whether or not he improves on that number.
And by the way, if you are thinking of Cincinnati Super Bowl, you better take them now. Because if they beat the Bills on national TV, they're not 8-1 to win the Super Bowl on Monday. Matter of fact, I think they could drop as low as 6 or 5-1 if they beat the Bills on Monday night.
They could. Exactly right. And the longer you wait, the more they win, the less the odds become.
Yes.
So you're better off doing it before the game plays.
Yep.
For
Absolutely.
Sure.
So anyway, a lot happening and a lot of weird stuff probably going to happen that we're not even thinking about. That's the NFL. So this is the time of year to enjoy it. We'll have our playoff preview show in a couple of weeks with Ryan Dunleavy, so we'll set that up like last year. Looking forward to that. But we still have Week 17 next season. That's going to be a lot of fun. And, of course, you're going to be doing the same at the Playbook ATS program on your YouTube channel, Playbook Experts. Check that out. We provide the links here on this channel as well. So even though we're still we only got a week left, you still have the bowl guide available. There's still some significant bowl games available if people want to purchase the bowl guide. And then like that, it's like college basketball season almost around the corner.
Let me say this about the bowl guide, if I may throw this in here real quick, Greg. Through the bowl games that had played through Wednesday, the sides of every bowl game in the bowl guide are 18-7 against the spread this year.
Okay.
They were 29-11 last year. So the sides have been like absolute gold mine inside that bowl guide. So there's still plenty of bowl games to be played. Get a copy of the bowl guide. Download it at playbooksports.com.
Mark, appreciate it as always. Can't wait to talk about the final week in the NFL season and the national championship game in college football, all in the same show next week.
That'll be terrific, Greg. I look forward to that.
We'll see you next week. For Marc Lawrence, Greg DePalma, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done it before, and like the channel. Share it. And if you have a comment, question, especially on any games or any topic whatsoever regarding handicapping, let us know. And either myself or Mark will answer it for you. So we'll talk to you guys next week.